Max Verstappen won his 50th career Grand Prix in Austin, but a real case of what should have happened comes from the Mercedes garage, which effectively ruined Hamilton's race with a few big errors during pit stops, which got Hamilton fuming after the race. To top it all off, on Monday morning, the F1 disqualified him and Leclerc due to a breach of the floor regulations, making Mercedes' weekend go from bad to worse. What will come of this drama in Brackley, and could it have long-lasting effects? When Verstappen first pitted on lap 17, he clearly had life left in his tyres, and the reason the Red Bull doesn't perform as well in qualifiers like they do in the race is due to its tendency to take a few laps to heat up its tyres, making it somewhat vulnerable at the start of a Grand Prix. This same trait, however, results in much smaller tyre degradation. The anti-dive suspension plays a role in this, but it ensures that Verstappen's tyres are far from worn out, and on Sunday the team recognised that the undercut was the way to go. By pitting right then and there, they could gain ground on the competition because Red Bull was certain it would be a two-stop race and opted for medium tyres to secure a clean undercut. Expecting Norris and Hamilton to respond, it would be normal to anticipate Norris entering the pits on the very next lap, followed by Hamilton, which would have allowed them to maintain their track positions over Verstappen, and if they had done so, the outcome of the race could have been different. However, Hamilton chose to stay out for one more lap, perhaps hoping to squeeze out more life from his tyres or attempt an overcut on Norris, which wasn't the case. When they asked if a target +4 strategy was possible, it wasn't clear what the target referred to or which lap they were aiming for. As it turned out, aiming for lap 25 or 26 was not viable given the tyre condition, and Hamilton struggled with grip, even locking up at one point. Mercedes initially believed that they could make it a one-stop race, likely thinking it was their best shot at winning. However, they eventually had to revert to a two-stop strategy, and by the time they made the switch, they had lost considerable time. If they had pitted Hamilton immediately to counteract Verstappen's undercut attempt, they would have been in a better position. Driving on aging tyres, Hamilton was losing about 2 seconds per lap to Verstappen's fresh mediums. Within just a few extra laps, he lost roughly 8 seconds, and this was a significant misjudgment on Mercedes' part. While it's understandable they considered the one-stop strategy given the circumstances, there was a chance for Norris and Hamilton to work together to challenge Verstappen's strategy because the Dutchman wasn't navigating the dirty air very well and encountered difficulties overtaking slower cars. Beating Verstappen on strategy was indeed feasible, but Mercedes, believing it wasn't feasible, opted to pit Hamilton late. However, even when they did, it turned out to be a subpar pit stop, which was indeed frustrating for the Silver Arrows. Red Bull consistently executes pit stops in the low 2.0 range, and although Verstappen had a slower stop today at 3.3 seconds, it was still considered subpar for Red Bull standards. For Hamilton, a 3.6-second stop is considered standard, and a 3.0-second stop is what he's happy with. Mercedes has adhered to a philosophy of steady, clean pit stops for years. However, this approach might not give the best results because in a two-stop race, gaining 2.5 seconds in a pit stop is significant. In the initial stint, Hamilton was ahead of Verstappen by about 4.5 seconds. Both teams essentially employed the same strategy, but a mistimed pit stop and a subpar performance by Mercedes resulted in an 11-second swing. This shift in fortunes was instrumental in shaping the outcome of the race. Had Mercedes executed better pit stops or made a more timely strategic call, pitting Hamilton on lap 18 or 19 instead of lap 22, the race might have had a different winner. While Verstappen could have potentially overtaken Hamilton in a direct contest based on their relative paces in the final 6 laps, it was far from guaranteed. Verstappen faced difficulties passing the Ferraris and had to make assertive moves to secure those positions. Hamilton expressed his frustration over the radio, questioning why he found himself in that position rather than leading. And Bono, his engineer, optimistically mentioned the possibility of a win, which Hamilton thought might be a stretch because, realistically, P2 seemed the only feasible outcome. Surprisingly, Norris's pace dropped towards the end of the race, though it could have been due to Hamilton's remarkable performance, as Russell didn't show an impressive pace either. Hamilton outpaced Norris significantly in the latter part of the race, and it was surprising why Norris let Verstappen pass so easily. Initially, it seemed like he might attempt a one-stop strategy, anticipating Verstappen would pit later. However, Norris quickly closed in on Verstappen, raising questions about his strategy. Hamilton had to make moves of his own, overtaking Leclerc, who was on a one-stop strategy, and then making a skillful move on Norris into turn 1. Hamilton's pace was impressive, but the brake issue hindered his pursuit, and while the gap to Verstappen narrowed, it was clear a win wasn't within reach. Verstappen showed some signs of pressure, which was evident in his radio messages. However, even without traffic, Hamilton likely wouldn't have caught up. Mercedes seemed to have made several mistakes. Pit stops were consistently subpar, and their strategy decisions were questionable. And even in Qatar, the decision to put Hamilton on softs in P3 while Russell started on mediums appeared misguided, given the subsequent Turn 1 incident. Toto Wolff's expression of disappointment on camera highlighted the missed opportunity. Beating Red Bull isn't just about having the fastest car, it's about being competitive in terms of strategy and pit stops. Red Bull excels in all these areas, making them a formidable opponent. McLaren, despite not winning today, still showcased their operational prowess, as they are closer to Red Bull across these key aspects than Mercedes, and this ultimately cost Mercedes the race. Hamilton finished in second place in the race, but he was eventually disqualified after his car was not compliant with regulations. The depth of the new floor of Hamilton's Mercedes was adjudged to be outside the thresholds outlined in Article 3.5.9e, which states that the plank cannot wear to below 9mm thickness. But before he was officially disqualified from the race, Hamilton was asked if he felt he should have won his first race since the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix 686 days ago. Had it not been for Mercedes' offset strategy, Hamilton was defiant. "Yes," he said, without hesitation. "I do think we would have been in a position to fight with Max. We made our lives a lot harder today than they needed to be. There are a lot of areas where we could have been better." Mercedes boss Toto Wolff added, "At the moment, we have mixed feelings because there is the pain of just having lost a race that we could have won." Hamilton suffered a significant setback, giving up a 10-second advantage to Max Verstappen, as Mercedes left him stranded in a challenging position while attempting a one-stop strategy at the Circuit of the Americas in Austin. At the start, Hamilton trailed leader Lando Norris by less than 2 seconds and held a 5-second advantage over Verstappen, who had started in 6th place. As the race progressed, Verstappen and Norris both pitted for fresh tyres on laps 16 and 17 respectively. In contrast, Hamilton received instructions to stay out, with an alternative strategy seen as the only viable way to outmaneuver the dominant Verstappen. However, this decision quickly proved to be a costly misjudgment. 2 years of being outperformed can certainly have a lasting impact on a team. Mercedes may have second-guessed itself in its approach to its challenging Verstappen and Red Bull, as they have become accustomed to thinking creatively to secure results in this new rule era. Interestingly, it seemed that Mercedes was pleasantly surprised by the performance of their car in the race. It's possible that an issue Verstappen was dealing with brought Red Bull closer to Mercedes than anticipated. By taking a proactive stance with their strategy, a team can increase their chances of capitalizing on any setbacks faced by their competitors. If the upgrades introduced this weekend have truly made a substantial difference, as both Hamilton and Toto Wolff have indicated, Mercedes might find themselves more confident in the remaining races of the year. This newfound confidence could potentially alter their strategic approach. What do you think? Did Mercedes really botch the strategy to win this race, which even in hindsight would have proved for nothing? But still, the sole fact that they beat Verstappen could speak volumes about where the team is. Let us know in the comments below, and we will see you next time.